In a moment that would change everything, I stumbled upon my stepson in a compromising situation, and instead of turning away, I chose to step into his world. Upon discovering my stepson immersed in play within the confines of his bedroom, I felt compelled to lend a hand, an act that unexpectedly unfolded into an adventure beyond my wildest dreams. On a tranquil Sunday afternoon, the kind of day when the house seemed to hold its breath. There was a sense of comforting familiarity in the air. Throughout the day, I found myself immersed in the rhythm of tidying up, letting the small tasks weave a tapestry of focus for my wandering thoughts. Please subscribe to Secrets Unveiled 88 channel so we have the motivation to produce more videos. The abode stood largely vacant, with my husband off on an unplanned fishing adventure with friends. The weekend settled into an unexpected stillness. In the quiet of the house, my stepson, Kyle, occupied his room upstairs, the soft thrum of his music seeping down to where I lingered in the kitchen. It was a rare occasion for the house to be just ours, yet the bond between Kyle and me had always flowed effortlessly. Kyle was 22, and while he exuded a confidence typical of his age, there were moments when a more reserved aspect of his personality would subtly emerge. As time passed, I found myself cherishing the subtle connection that existed between us. It wasn't boisterous or extravagant, yet it lingered, unwavering and reassuring. Once the dishes were done, I filled a glass with iced tea and took my place by the kitchen window, allowing the gentle warmth of the sunlight to envelop me. The stillness should have brought peace, yet a restless energy bubbled up inside me. It was the sort of sensation that stirred restlessness within me, prompting me to rise and see how Kyle was faring. The gentle notes of his music lingered in the air as I ascended to the top of the stairs. The door to his bedroom stood slightly ajar, allowing the whispers of sound to drift out into the world beyond. I paused for a heartbeat, weighing the choice between knocking or letting him be, yet an undeniable pull, perhaps curiosity, nudged me onward. I moved nearer, ready to call out to him, but the view through the slender opening froze me in place. Kyle sat on the edge of his bed, his posture a blend of relaxation and intent concentration. His hands danced with a purpose that eluded my understanding, while his gaze remained anchored to the ground, a slight furrow on his brow revealing the depths of his concentration. My breath caught as I became aware of his actions, the closeness of the moment revealing itself before my eyes. I ought to have walked away, to have granted him the solitude he so evidently believed he possessed. Yet, I found myself paralyzed, anchored in place by an unusual blend of astonishment and curiosity. The essence of the moment was captivating. A delicate vulnerability enveloping Kyle, as he remained blissfully unaware of the world beyond his room. The room was enveloped in the tender embrace of the afternoon sun, casting delicate shadows that highlighted the contours of his face, the graceful arc of his shoulders. I felt the weight of my decision as I stood there, unable to tear my gaze away from him. Yet, the vision of him, so open and genuine, awakened something profound inside me, a sense of wonder, an unvoiced inquiry that beckoned for my attention. Before I could collect my thoughts, Kyle glanced up, his gaze locking onto mine through the slender opening of the door. Time hung in the air, his expression transforming from astonishment to a deeper emotion, a blend of shame and doubt. His hand stilled, and for a moment, neither of us moved, ensnared in a shared silence that felt as if it could last an eternity. I began to weave my words together. Anything to ease the strain. Yet, the words eluded me, my heart raced within my chest, a wild cadence that reverberated in my ears. Kyle was the first to make a move, stretching out his hand toward a nearby blanket to envelop himself. His cheeks blushed a vibrant hue of crimson. "I didn't think you'd come upstairs," he mumbled, his voice low and heavy with a hint of shame. Apologies escaped my lips, my cheeks aflame as I retreated from the threshold. I had no intention to. I was unaware. The words flowed forth in a swift cascade, yet Kyle merely shook his head, his hand lifted gently as if to halt my journey. "It's fine," he said swiftly, though a tremor laced his voice. "Simply grant me but a moment." I nodded, stepping back down the hallway toward the top of the stairs. My mind is a chaotic tapestry of thoughts. Alas, I lingered longer than I ought, my eyes drawn to the unfolding tale before me. Yet, the vision of Kyle, so exposed and unprotected, lingered in my thoughts. I remained in that spot, my fingers clutching the banister as I sought to calm my breath. 1,000 thoughts raced through the mind, each one a vivid thread in the tapestry of imagination. whirling through my thoughts, each one more perplexing than the last. In that moment, Kyle was a revelation, transformed not only in appearance, but in the depths of his emotions. His expression held a resonance that stirred something profound within me, an elusive feeling that I couldn't quite identify, yet could not dismiss either. Little did I realize at the time, but it had set in motion a chain of events that, in time, it would evolve into something wildly thrilling. The creak of Kyle's door swinging open drew me back from my reverie. As he crossed the threshold into the hallway, his movements were hesitant, his gaze avoiding mine. He donned a t-shirt and shorts, his typical laid-back ensemble, yet the rosy hue of his cheeks, and the stiff tension in his stance revealed a deeper discomfort. "Apologies for that," he murmured, his voice soft as he rested against the doorframe. "I never intended for you to behold that. It's all right," I responded swiftly, my voice gentler than normal. "Alas, I should have knocked, my mind was elsewhere." He nodded, his gaze finally connecting with mine for a fleeting moment. An instant before slipping away once more. "I suppose we're on equal footing now," he remarked, a subtle, anxious laugh escaping his lips. "Even?" I inquired, tilting my head slightly in a state of bewilderment. He shrugged, a faint smile playing at the edge of his smile. "You've stumbled upon my tale." "I have stumbled upon you. Recall that warm summer day when the bathroom door was left unlatched?" The recollection struck me with a sudden force, igniting a fresh warmth in my cheeks. I and the tapestry of my memories, that incident had slipped away, a brief flicker of awkwardness that we had brushed aside with laughter in the moment. "I suppose you have a point," I replied with a chuckle, though there was still a hint of unease in my voice. "We stand on equal ground." The tension that hung in the air began to dissipate, as if the shared memory had woven a delicate bridge, connecting the awkwardness of the moment to the effortless familiarity that had always defined our bond. Yet, amidst our laughter, an unsettling sensation lingered, whispering that a change had woven itself into the fabric of our connection. There exists a presence, lingering just out of sight, yearning for recognition. The laughter ebbed away, giving rise to a silence that hung in the air, distinct and profound, as if it carried the weight of untold tales. Kyle leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed casually over his chest, yet his posture hinted at an undercurrent of tension. Uncertainty gripped me, and for a fleeting moment, I contemplated retreating downstairs, allowing him the space I had so unmistakably intruded upon. Yet there was something in the way his gaze danced toward me, both tentative and probing, that anchored me to the spot. It wasn't quite unease, either. There was a gentle quality, a tender fragility that beckoned me to linger. At last, I spoke, my voice barely above a whisper, softer than I had meant it to be. "Would you like to share your thoughts on it?" Kyle's eyes grew a touch larger, his cheeks taking on a deeper hue as he subtly shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "What shall we delve into precisely?" he inquired, a hint of anxiousness coloring his voice. A gentle smile graced my lips, a quiet attempt to dissolve the palpable tension in the air. "Once upon a time, there was a world filled with endless possibilities. If it's not something you wish to do, that's perfectly fine. I merely thought it might bring you some comfort." He paused, his eyes falling to the ground as he nervously rubbed the back of his neck. He paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "I don't know," he finally confessed. "It feels a bit awkward, to be honest." I ventured a step nearer. With each step, I moved slowly and with purpose, as if I were drawing near to a timid creature, careful not to startle it. "Kyle, it's perfectly natural to feel a bit embarrassed. We all have those moments that remind us we're human." His lips curled into a subtle, humble smile. "Not everyone finds themselves ensnared by their stepmother's web." The manner in which he expressed it, a blend of jest and embarrassment, brought a gentle chuckle from me, and to my astonishment, his grin broadened just a touch in reply. "I suppose not," I conceded, leaning against the opposite wall to echo his stance, "but you know, I've found myself in my fair share of awkward moments as well. In this journey, you are not solitary." Kyle gazed up at me then, his expression gently shifting. "Indeed, there's always a certain quality about you that stands out, poised, as if you possess an unwavering sense of control at all moments." The remark took me by surprise, leaving me with a lingering sensation I couldn't quite identify. "I'm not as composed as you think," I murmured, my voice softening, believe me, I've experienced my share of instances where I was completely lost in the moment. He regarded me for a moment, his brow knitting together as if he were attempting to bridge the gap between the image he held of me and the reality of the person before him. It's simply strange, he remarked at last, his tone nearly reflective. You're truly distinct from father. Not in a negative sense, just unique. In that moment, uncertainty washed over me, and I chose to embrace a gentle approach, for sometimes, a different path can lead to unexpected goodness. Kyle nodded, his expression lingering in contemplation. Indeed, he replied after a moment's thought, I suppose it can. The silence lingered between us once more, yet this time, it carried a lighter weight. I noticed the tension in Kyle's shoulders beginning to fade. The subtle lines of concern around his eyes relaxing as he settled back against the doorframe. I apologize for you having to witness that, he said after a pause, his tone now imbued with genuine sincerity. I suppose I wasn't fully engaged in thought. I didn't realize you were here. It's all right, I replied swiftly, aiming to ease his worries. Truly, it's nothing of great consequence. My only wish is to ensure your well-being. Kyle nodded, yet he continued to evade my gaze. Yes, I'm doing well, it's a bit of a challenge to put into words. I tilted my head slightly, a spark of curiosity igniting within me. It's a challenge to articulate how. He paused, his fingers nervously toying with the hem of his shirt. It's simply. Sometimes, being in the company of others can be quite challenging, wouldn't you agree? It often seems as though there's an expectation for me to embody a particular persona, and when I stray from that, it creates a sense of dissonance. It seems I may be missing the mark. His words struck me with an intensity one hadn't anticipated, stirring a deep sense of empathy within me for him. Kyle, I whispered gently, taking another step closer, embrace the essence of who you are. There is no need to don a different mask. There's no need for you to conform to anyone's expectations, neither mine, nor your father's, nor anyone else's. He gazed up at me then, his eyes wide and probing, and for a fleeting moment, I glimpsed the vulnerability he typically concealed. Oh, you truly believe that? I understand that, I stated with conviction. Kyle, you possess a goodness that needs no validation from others. The edges of his lips curled slightly, and I noticed the tightness in his stance beginning to melt away even more. Thanks, he murmured softly, his voice just a breath above silence. You're welcome, I replied, my voice gentle and inviting. We lingered for a moment longer, the silence between us taking on a sense of camaraderie, as if it had woven a bond in that stillness. The faint traces of a smile lingered on Kyle's lips, and a wave of relief washed over me as I sensed he was feeling better. Yet, as the tension began to dissipate, an undeniable sense lingered within me, a whisper that something had irrevocably changed between us. The way he regarded me, the way his eyes held mine just a heartbeat longer, sent a thrill through my heart that I couldn't quite grasp. At last, Kyle lifted himself, gently pushing away from the doorframe with a soft exhale. I should probably do something productive, he said, his tone playful yet laced with uncertainty. Pause for a moment, I suggested with a gentle grin. There's no need to hurry into any decisions. He nodded, his gaze locking with mine for a fleeting moment before he turned away, vanishing into his room, the door whispering closed behind him. I lingered for a moment, gazing at the closed door as a peculiar blend of emotions swirled inside me. A swirl of emotions danced within me, a blend of confusion and curiosity, perhaps, but I struggled to find the right name for it. Yet, I was certain of one thing, the bond between Kyle and me would forever be altered. Yet, what lay ahead was even more astonishing. The remainder of the afternoon drifted by in an unusual fog. I sought refuge in the mundane, engaging in small tasks like folding laundry and sorting through the mail, anything to steer my thoughts away from that moment in the hallway. Yet, regardless, the memory of Kyle's expression, the vulnerability in his voice, lingered in my thoughts like a shadow I couldn't shake, weaving a tale of emotions that echoed long after the moment had passed. I reassured myself that it was merely a passing instance of discomfort, one that we would both soon leave behind. Yet, the harder I endeavored to persuade myself, the more my certainty began to wane. His gaze held a certain openness, a vulnerability that resonated within me, awakening feelings I hadn't anticipated. As the evening approached, I found myself utterly spent, my emotions laid bare. I nestled into the couch with a book, yearning to immerse myself in the fictional realm and find refuge from the tempest of my thoughts. yet, the words on the page danced and merged, my focus drifting repeatedly to the shut door at the summit of the stairs. The echo of footsteps pierced through my fog, and I lifted my gaze to find Kyle descending the stairs. His hair was a bit tousled, as if he'd just rolled out of bed, and there was a palpable sense of uncertainty surrounding him that made my heart constrict. "Hey," he murmured gently, lingering at the base of the steps. Once upon a time, I found myself on the brink of brewing a delightful cup of tea. "Shall I brew you a cup?" The straightforwardness of the inquiry took me by surprise, and I found myself nodding before my thoughts could spiral into complexity. "That sounds lovely, thank you." Kyle slipped away into the kitchen, and after a brief pause, I found myself drawn to follow, unable to resist the allure of his presence. As I entered the room, I found him already engaged in the task of filling the kettle, his actions measured and serene. The gentle murmur of the boiling water enveloped the room, intertwining with the delicate chime of. He placed the cups gently on the counter, each one finding its rightful spot. "Do you still enjoy honey in yours?" he inquired, casting a fleeting look back at me. "Indeed," I responded, resting against the counter while my gaze followed him. His tone carried a relaxed air, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that his movements were just a touch too deliberate, as if he were engaged in a subtle dance to divert his own attention. In that fleeting moment, we found ourselves enveloped in silence, the air thick with unspoken words, while the gentle whistle of the kettle punctuated the stillness around us. There was something I felt compelled to express, a need to confront the unspoken tension that had settled around us since earlier, yet the words eluded me. As the steam curled up from the freshly brewed tea, Kyle passed me a mug. His figure leaning casually against the counter across from me. He lifted the cup to his lips, savoring a delicate sip, his eyes drawn to the wisps of steam dancing upward. "I've been pondering your words." He spoke at last, his voice soft yet unwavering. I leaned in just a bit, eager for him to share more of his tale. He elaborated on the freedom of not having to meet anyone's expectations. It seems I've devoted so much of my energy to shaping myself into what others desire that I've lost sight of my own true wishes. His words struck me with the force of a blow, and I placed my mug down gently, wary that my trembling hands might reveal my turmoil. "Kyle," I whispered gently, "it's perfectly all right to feel that way. You're on a journey of discovery, and that's perfectly okay. There's no need to possess every answer at this very moment." He nodded slowly, his gaze finally locking onto mine. "But what if I feel a tremor of fear at the thought of uncovering the truth? What if do I not appreciate what I discover?" The unvarnished truth in his voice wrapped around me, causing my throat to constrict, and I found myself needing to inhale deeply before I could find the words to reply. "It's perfectly natural to feel fear," I remarked, my voice quivering just a touch. "Yet, you possess a strength beyond your own perception. There's no need to confront everything in one go. Embrace each moment as it unfolds, and have faith that your path will reveal itself." Kyle's lips curled slightly, a whisper of a smile that never quite illuminated his eyes. "It seems like a breeze when you describe it. It's not," I confessed, my own smile laced with a hint of melancholy. "Yet, you are not solitary. In your journey, know that I stand by your side, unwavering and steadfast." For a fleeting moment, he simply regarded me, his gaze unwavering and probing. The fragility in his expression was nearly overwhelming, and I sensed an inexplicable tug in my chest, a longing I couldn't quite articulate. "Thank you," he murmured at last, his voice a soft breath barely escaping his lips. "That's the essence of family." Kyle nodded. Yet his expression lingered in contemplation, as if a deeper thought danced on the tip of his tongue, waiting for the right moment to emerge. I lingered, allowing him the moment to find his words. Yet, the fleeting moment slipped away, and he chose to savor another sip of his tea instead. The quiet that enveloped us was not awkward, yet it bore a weight, laden with unvoiced thoughts and feelings that we both hesitated to confront. I felt compelled to extend a hand of comfort, yet I found myself uncertain of what would truly soothe him, or if he even grasped his own needs. At last, Kyle lifted himself upright and placed his mug upon the counter. "I think I'm going to head to bed," he said, his tone playful yet laced with a hint of uncertainty. "Very well," I replied, my voice softer than I had meant it to be. "Sleep well, Kyle. Good night," he replied, his gaze lingering on me for just a moment longer before he turned and vanished up the stairs. I lingered in the kitchen, the air thick with the remnants of his presence, my thoughts weaving a complex tapestry of confusion and yearning. The weight of the day bore down on me, stirring a peculiar blend of emotions, worry, tenderness, and an elusive feeling that danced just beyond my grasp. As I ascended the stairs to my own room, an undeniable sense lingered within me, whispering that this was merely the prologue. A change had woven itself between Kyle and me, an unvoiced truth that lingered in the air, palpable and real. And no matter how much I attempted to push it aside, I understood that it would only intensify as time went on, yet, the tale was far from over. The moment of truth was upon us. Once more the house was enveloped in silence, yet there was an unmistakable shift in the air. The air felt thick, as though the unsaid thoughts shared between Kyle and me had woven themselves into the very fabric of the walls, resting in every shadowed nook. I lay in bed, gazing up at the ceiling. As the gentle whisper of the trees outside did little to soothe the restless energy swirling inside me. My mind wandered repeatedly to Kyle, his expression etched in my memory, the vulnerability that danced in his voice, the way his gaze had held mine just a heartbeat longer than necessary. There existed a presence, an essence that eluded my ability to articulate. Yet its existence was unmistakable. As I turned onto my side, I shut my eyes, hoping against hope that sleep would come to me at last. Yet the stillness only magnified my musings, and after what seemed like an eternity, I surrendered. The air hung heavy around me, a silence that pressed down like a weight. I felt an urgent need to break free, to stir the restless energy swirling within me. With a gentle grace, I slipped out of bed and made my way quietly down the hallway. The gentle luminescence of the moonlight poured through the windows, creating elongated shadows that waltzed across the walls. Uncertainty enveloped me as I ventured forth, my feet guiding me almost instinctively toward Kyle's room. The door stood slightly open, allowing a soft glow from a lamp to spill into the hallway, casting gentle shadows that danced along the walls. For a fleeting moment, I paused, my heart racing in my chest as I weighed the decision to knock. Yet, just as I was about to make my choice, his voice reached me, gentle and tinged with uncertainty. "You can come in," he said, his voice steady, yet tinged with a hint of hesitation. With a deep breath, I forced the door open and entered the room. Kyle sat on the edge of his bed, his hands resting gently in his lap. His hair fell in a charming disarray, and the delicate shadows beneath his eyes hinted at restless nights that had come and gone. I observed that he was repeating the same actions from my last visit to his room, yet this time it felt as if we both were indifferent to the occurrence. "Rest eluded you?" I inquired gently, resting against the doorframe. He shook his head, a faint, weary smile gracing his lips. "There are countless thoughts swirling in my head, I suppose." I nodded, fully grasping the essence of it all. "Same here." For a fleeting moment, silence enveloped us both. The stillness enveloped us, punctuated only by the soft, steady hum of the lamp resting on his nightstand. The atmosphere was charged, thick and heavy with unspoken words, and I found myself uncertain of how to shatter it, or if I even desired to do so. "I've been pondering," Kyle said suddenly, his voice slicing through the stillness, "about what you mentioned earlier, about not having to fulfill anyone's expectations." I ventured deeper into the room, gently shutting the door behind me. "What is it all about?" Kyle paused, his eyes falling to his hands. "At times, it feels almost unbelievable. It seems as though my entire existence has been a quest to mold myself into the image that others desire, and now I find myself at a loss for how to break free from this cycle." His words washed over me like a tide, drawing me across the room to take a seat beside him on the bed. "Kyle," I murmured gently, resting my hand on his arm. "There's no need to unravel everything at this very moment. Embrace the journey, allowing yourself to move forward one step at a time." He gazed up at me then, his eyes brimming with a blend of uncertainty and something more profound. A moment that took my breath away. "What if I find myself lost, unsure of my identity without all of that?" he inquired, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. I gently squeezed his arm, my emotions swirling within me as I sought the perfect words to express what I felt. "You remain the same, Kyle. The weight of expectations does not shape your essence. In this moment, you hold a depth that transcends the surface, even if it feels obscured at times." Kyle's gaze held mine, and I sensed the profound weight of his emotions swirling in the space that separated us. "It seems so simple," he remarked, a gentle, nostalgic smile gracing his lips. "It's not," I confessed, my voice now a mere whisper, "but that doesn't mean it's beyond reach. Within you lies a strength greater than you can imagine." For a fleeting moment, the silence enveloped them, yet it held no discomfort. The warmth of his presence enveloped me, while the soft hum of the lamp cast a gentle glow that danced across the room. In that instant, it felt like the entire universe had slipped into the background, leaving just the two of us. Entwined in this precious moment together. "Thank you," Kyle said at last, his voice unwavering yet tinged with feeling. "No need for thanks," I said, my voice gentle and warm. Yet, as the tension began to dissolve, I found myself unable to overlook the way his gaze held onto mine, nor could I dismiss the flutter of my heart in reply. An unvoiced tension lingered in the air between us, a delicate thread neither of us seemed prepared to unravel. Kyle shifted slightly, his hand grazing mine as he settled into a new position. The encounter was fleeting, nearly serendipitous, yet it sent a tremor through my being, my breath momentarily halting in my throat. "I can't imagine my life without you," he murmured, his eyes falling to our hands, now resting together in quiet harmony. "You'll never have to discover that truth," I responded, my voice quivering ever so slightly. Kyle lifted his gaze to meet mine, his eyes probing deeply, seeking something I couldn't quite identify. The room was enveloped in an eerie silence. The atmosphere surrounding us crackled with a vibrant energy, a thrilling blend of excitement and fear. In that fleeting instant, I realized that everything we shared would forever be transformed. Kyle's eyes locked onto mine, unwavering and probing. And I felt the intensity of his gaze permeate every part of my soul. My heart raced, each beat loud and insistent, echoing in my ears as the moment lingered between us, heavy with unspoken words and possibilities. I ought to have turned my gaze elsewhere. Words should have flowed from my lips, a gentle balm to soothe the unease, guiding us back to the warm embrace of our cherished connection. Yet, I found myself unable to do so. I stood still, captivated by the depth of his gaze, the raw vulnerability and longing that shimmered within it. Kyle shifted slightly, his hand brushing against mine once more, and this time, neither of us drew back. The connection was charged, a surge that coursed through me, igniting a thrill that danced along my skin, and left me breathless. A sudden tightness gripped my throat, and a gentle warmth surged within my chest. An undeniable presence that demanded my attention. "You've always been there for me," Kyle murmured, his voice a gentle whisper filled with deep feeling. Even when the words eluded me, I don't believe I've ever shared just how deeply that gesture resonates within me. His words crashed over me like a tidal wave, and I swallowed hard, my throat constricted with emotion. "Kyle," I said, my voice quivering just a bit. "There's no need to express that. Your significance in my life has always been profound. My deepest desire is for your happiness." His lips curled into a subtle, bittersweet smile. "I don't know what happiness looks like for me yet," he admitted, his gaze falling to where our hands lingered, fingers just grazing each other. "Yet, I sense that in your presence, I can unravel the mysteries that surround me." The fragility in his voice tugged at my heart, igniting a deep desire within me to reach out, to assure him that all would be well in the end. As I prepared to share my thoughts, I discovered that the words eluded me. Instead, I extended my hand, my fingers softly wrapping around his. Kyle gazed up at me then, his eyes wide and brimming with an emotion I couldn't quite identify. "I don't want to mess this up," he said softly, his voice just a breath above a whisper. "Fear not, for you shall not falter," I assured, my tone calm and unwavering. "Allow me to assist you with the task you were immersed in, Kyle." For a moment, neither of us stirred, the silence enveloping us thick and electric, and then, with a careful grace, Kyle leaned in, his movements tentative, as if he were pausing, gauging my response. Almost as if he sought my permission to continue. His lips brushed against mine, tentative and feather-light, and I felt my heart skip a beat. The kiss lingered gently, a touch of uncertainty in its softness, yet it ignited a warmth within me that was impossible to overlook. My hands danced with a life of their own, one gently resting on his arm while the other cradled his face, my fingers gliding over the subtle stubble that adorned his jaw. For a fleeting instant, all else faded into the background. In that moment, silence enveloped us, a gentle darkness where time ceased to exist. All that mattered was the tender warmth of his lips meeting mine, the rhythmic pulse of my heart echoing in the stillness, and the profound bond that surged through the air, weaving us together in an unbreakable embrace. As we gently separated, our foreheads still touching, a whirlwind of emotions surged within me, impossible to decipher. Amidst the swirling chaos and the shadows of fear, there lingered a profound, inexplicable feeling of righteousness that resonated within me. I had offered my assistance, and it was clear that he found joy in it, yet a lingering sense of regret tugged at my heart. "Kyle," I began, my voice a mere breath, barely rising above the silence. "This is, I know," he said quickly, his voice quivering just a touch. "I understand it's intricate. I simply wanted you to understand the depths of my feelings." His words wrapped around my chest like a vice, and I let out a shaky breath, my hands lingering on his arms. "This isn't something we can take lightly," I said softly, my voice unwavering even amidst the tempest of feelings swirling tumultuously within me. "I'm not," he replied, his tone sincere and unwavering. "This has been on my mind quite a bit. I've attempted to cast it aside, to distance myself from it, yet it lingers on. You are the singular presence that allows me to embrace my true self." His honesty wove a tapestry of heartbreak and solace, stirring a pang of guilt deep within me for the emotions it awakened. This was a realm yet to be explored, and uncertainty loomed over my next steps. As I gazed into his eyes, a truth became undeniable. I could not overlook the connection unfolding between us. "I care about you, Kyle," I finally admitted, my voice quivering just a bit, "more than you might imagine. Yet, we must tread with caution. We must ponder the significance of this." He nodded, his eyes locked onto mine, unwavering and intent. "I understand. I simply don't wish to let this slip away, whatever this may be. I wish for it to remain forever." "It needn't be so," I murmured gently, my hands settling quietly in my lap. "Yet, we must proceed with caution. We must ensure certainty." Kyle nodded once more, his face a blend of resolve and fragility. With a hushed determination, he declared, "I will do whatever it takes." The genuine emotion in his voice stirred something deep within me, causing a profound ache in my chest, and I graced him with a soft, hesitant smile. "We shall unravel this mystery," I declared, my voice unwavering. "In unity." Kyle's lips curled into a subtle smile, and as the evening unfolded, a wave of tranquility enveloped me for the first time. The atmosphere that had once crackled with tension began to soften, giving way to a shared sense of understanding. Though the path ahead was not without its complexities, we would navigate it side by side. As I prepared to take my leave, he extended his hand, his fingers lightly grazing mine in a quiet expression of unity. I gazed back at him, my heart brimming with a whirlwind of emotions that eluded precise definition. With a tender grip, I held his hand for a moment longer before quietly stepping out of the room. The hallway now embraced a hush, the air carrying a newfound lightness. As if a gentle breeze had swept away the heaviness that once lingered. I understood that the journey before me would be fraught with challenges. As I journeyed back to my room, an unexpected sense of hope began to blossom within me. Whatever unfolds, whatever challenges awaited us, we would confront them side by side. What are your thoughts on my actions? Is it common for a stepmother to assist her stepson in that way, or is it not right? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, so please share them with me. Gratitude flows from my heart.